I'm Rosh from Energy Matters. Welcome to our podcast, Road to Zero, where we dive headfirst into all things renewable. Join us as we chat with industry experts, tech specialists, and some of your favorite TV and radio personalities, asking the renewable energy questions you want answers to. Our goal, a zero carbon future. Today's episode is a little bit different. I'm absolutely delighted to be chatting to a number of exhibitors at this year's Power and Utilities Australia exhibition and conference, which is being staged at the Melbourne Convention Centre on the 7th and 8th of May. So it's going to be absolutely fantastic. It's going to be a huge exhibition, lots of speakers, lots of exhibitors, lots of reasons to attend. So I'm going to encourage you guys to go because you know what, if you are in Melbourne on those dates, you need to check it out and see what this industry is all about as well. So the first speaker we've got lined up for you today is Alex Houlston, who is the co-founder and CEO of Boom Power. Alex, how are you?
Hi, Rosh. Very well, thanks. Yeah, how are you?
I am very well, thank you. Very well. Alex, you and I haven't spoken properly before. We had a quick chat before you jumped on. But it's awesome to obviously have you on our podcast and lovely to meet you as well. I haven't heard of Boom Power before. So can you tell us a little bit, first of all, foremost about Boom Power, what you guys do?
Sure. So Boom is Australia's leading home electrification software platform. It's used by energy utilities and by home lenders, so banks, and to help. So B2B2C is a white labeled software platform that is used by those markets to help their household, so mortgage customers or consumer customers, to electrify their homes. So replace gas appliances, install solar, and finance those and get access to those products and solutions.
And how does that service actually work? So it's purely software. You work with the different utilities or organizations as such. And then utilizing your software, it helps them, how does it help with the electrification process?
So it's white labeled. So for some of our customers, Bank Australia, for example, launched about 9 months ago, and they provide it to their mortgage customers. There's a simple interface for householders to use to work out the costs and benefits of home electrification. So, for example, as you'll know, installing solar on a house gives you a particular cost benefit. But if you combine that with replacing gas, hot water with electric heat pump, plus air conditioning, the cost benefit changes depending on the configuration of the house. So it very simply allows people to make changes or make different decisions about what they're going to replace, what the size of the solar system would be, whether they want a battery, and then get quotes for those. So we're a marketplace platform. So we run a pre-qualification, and quotes are provided to householders. And once the supplier then provides a final quote by going on site, the customer accepts the quote via the Boom platform, and then once documentation is uploaded into the platform by the supplier, then payments can be made if it's being financed by a bank, for example, or via an energy retailer.
That's absolutely fantastic. And on your actual stand itself, how are you going to show this to the audience? What's your? I imagine there's going to be a number of different screens and demonstrations on how the software works. What's your methodology in communication?
We're actually on the Startup Bootcamp stand. We were a part of their scale-up program late last year. So we, as I understand it, it's pretty casual. The Startup Bootcamp, they're the major sponsor, so they have a big stand in the middle where we'll be able to use the screens and give demonstrations of how the platform works. So I'm looking forward to it. It's pretty casual by the sound of it, and it'll be a matter of networking really, and talking to people in the power and utilities industry that we're not already working with.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun, and there's going to be a lot of talking going on as well. So look, I wish you all the best, Alex. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple of time.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. Good to meet you.
Likewise. Thanks, mate. Okay, so my next guest is from Energy Australia. You know them as gas and electricity suppliers and one of the largest organisations in Australia doing exactly that, but they do a lot more. So I'd like to join with me right now Jack Cotlier, who is the head of green transport for Energy Australia. Jack, how are you?
Good, mate. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. I'm losing my voice, but I'm getting there. Jack, you and I haven't met before, but obviously I know Energy Australia. I've done some work with those guys many years ago. A fantastic brand, and really just like what it's amazing actually to see the transition now from black fuel back in the day to everyone's transition towards green carbon reduction and coming up with more innovation as well to help support that transition to cleaner fuels. Before we get too stuck into Energy Australia, can you just tell me a little bit more about yourself, what your background is and how you actually found Energy Australia?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an energy lifer, pretty much straight out of uni. Started off with Powercore and City Power, one of the distribution businesses that you know well, here in Melbourne. Had an opportunity to work with Alinta when they came over from the west to the east coast. So that was a lot of good experiences in the mid sort of 2000s. Then got the opportunity to head over to Siemens. So I was on the other side of the negotiating table. And that's really when, from a renewable energy perspective, particularly wind power, started to do a lot of work with Siemens in the wind power space. And in the last 8 years have been had a great ride here at EA in lots of different roles in strategy, in public affairs, and in the last 4 years in NextGen, which is all those things that are going to occur in the next 3 to 5 years. And how does EA position itself with products and services to customers? And really in the last couple of years in green transport, and how are we going to electrify transport, help our fleet customers electrify, as well as offer public charging for both EA and non-EA customers. So a proud energy nerd, a proud energy lifer, and looking forward to all those challenges to decarbonise Australia and the role we can play.
Well, mate, look, I'm not all us energy lifers. Some people may consider us to be nerds, and look, I suppose some of the subject matter sometimes can be, but at the same token, it's really we're all there because we know we can make a difference, and it's good to see what part we can play as well as the organisations that we work with. I know you are going to be talking and presenting at Power and Utilities. So for anyone who's interested in coming along and potentially checking you guys out, can you tell us what topic you'll be presenting on and what day and time that'll be?
Yeah, so it's the 8th of May at 12:10, so at lunchtime. So I'll probably be the difference between all the guests and lunch. So I'll try to make it as riveting as possible on the 8th of May. The real key challenge from a green transport perspective and e-mobility perspective, the topic that I'll be talking about, and hopefully lots of Q&A, is around looking at the challenge of charging and the grid, or the way from an Energy Australia perspective, we look at it as an energy opportunity. So I think we know vehicles are coming, big and small, buses and trucks are coming on hard, as well as obviously passenger vehicles. And the more vehicles we have, the more chargers we'll need. And the more chargers we'll need, the more challenges we will put on the grid. But I think the opportunity, at least our viewpoint from an Energy Australia perspective, is when you combine the chargers with solar, with battery, with the grid connection and the retail tariff, we can achieve a better outcome for the customer. And so a couple of the key insights that we've had from the last couple of years are starting to do installs for customers and what potential customers should look for and avoid the mistakes that we've all made in early on in this journey of what they can watch out for.
Which is absolutely fantastic and super interesting as well. I mean, I was in Europe at the end of last year and around Spain primarily, but obviously visiting home in England. And I was blown away to see how incredible the EV infrastructure or charging infrastructure was. I mean, literally, no matter where you went around the coastline in Spain, there was just like EV chargers are not being used. The same thing applied throughout the UK. And for me, it almost seemed like there was an oversupply of EV charging infrastructure. Whereas in Australia, and I live in Melbourne, like I'm struggling to find anywhere where you can actually, charge a vehicle publicly for the start, but secondly, access a fast charger. So it really kind of is that, that thing in the back of people's minds. They want to transition to EVs. They know it's important to do so. And at the same token, it's not so much the limitations on size of battery and how much mileage I can get out of their vehicles. It's like when I actually do get a flat battery, well, how do I charge it if I don't live in a home and don't have an access to an EV charger? So interesting.
I think it's fascinating, and I always like to look at Europe and America because I think they're a couple of years ahead of us in Australia. So we can look to them and say, hey, this is what we're going to look like in 26, 27, and how do we better coordinate so we either don't have that undersupply or oversupply. I think in any industry, you will have times where potentially you are oversupplied with chargers and times where you are undersupplied. So if there's more vehicles coming in than expected, the charging infrastructure players need to catch up. But then you might have a situation where, and I think we're almost getting there in this year, where I think the EV Council was predicting we would get a doubling of fast chargers in the next 12 months. But we probably won't have a doubling of vehicles coming on. It's probably a 50% catch up on vehicles. So touch wood, this time next year when we're having this chat for the next Power and Utilities conference, we might be saying there's a little bit more balance in that. Yeah. And I think that's in the public charging space. And then I think it's going to be fascinating what happens in that home space as well. One good example, I've had a EV in the household for 2 years now, but I think in 5 years' time, I'll probably have 4 EVs. Both myself and my wife will be driving an EV, and both my girls will be driving an EV as they get to driving age. And the question of, so what? How will the grid cope with 4 electric appliances, an extra 4 electric appliances being those EVs trying to charge? And then you ask the question, well, what happens if the whole street is going to have EV cars?
Yeah.
And so how will we cope as an energy system and getting us that energy to the grid, whether it's to the home or to the business, which will be a massive electron consumer as we electrify fleets, buses, trucks, vans, cars. How's that going to play out? And what's happening in Europe now so we don't make those mistakes here in Australia?
Which is absolutely fascinating. Look, you've got me excited, mate. So I can't wait to hear you chat in public and obviously be part of that, that Q&A as well when it comes about. I'm sure it's going to be a very, very interesting discussion. And look, I could just keep you on this podcast for the next 15, 20 minutes talking about this, but I won't because otherwise you won't have any material left for next week. But Jack, just aside from what we're doing with green transportation, I mean, what else is Energy Australia doing now to fly that green flag and obviously help us transition to a cleaner future?
Yeah, so it's definitely a company, and it's why I stick around, and it's why people join Energy Australia. We're definitely part of that energy transition. So in the next couple of weeks, we're commissioning New South Wales gas-fired power station Tullawarra B, which is hydrogen enabled. So it will bring on that green hydrogen over time as the supply comes on. 12 months from now, 12 to 18 months from now in Queensland, the Kidston project is a pumped hydro project. 8 hours of energy, pump that water up the hill when it's nice and sunny in far north Queensland. Sun goes down, pump the water down the hill, create lots of electricity, which will be all renewable because the water's been pumped up the hill using solar. There's lots of solar and wind that we've got as part of our portfolio, and a couple of big batteries being in part of the development phase. So our coal-fired power station in Yallourn in Victoria is scheduled to close by 2028. And to get ready for that, in the next couple of years, we've got a very big battery being put together, being built. A 350 megawatt, most likely 4-hour battery. So as we close down these coal-fired power stations, we need to replace them with the solar, the wind, the pumped hydro, the batteries to hit our net zero targets.
Mate, fantastic. Well, look, Jack, that's all the time I got for you today, but thank you so much for joining me. I do appreciate it. And the 8th of May, people, at 12:10, if you're hungry, just have a quick snack. So you won't want to miss Jack. This is really fascinating of being on this podcast for a few minutes, but to see you up there with a much bigger discussion, I can't wait. Thanks once again, mate. I appreciate you joining me.
We'll see you there.
Okay, so next cab off the rank is someone I'm very interested to chat to. Being in that solar and PV space for the last 18 to 20 years, we're very aware of all the panels that we have installed over that period of time. And back in the day, potentially the quality of panel wasn't as great. So I'm very keen to chat to my next guest, who is Jim Foran. He did tell me how to pronounce it a second ago. Director and CEO of PV Stop. Jim, how are you, mate?
Good, Roshan. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. Very well. Look, I'm intrigued to find out more about PV Stop. But before I do, can you just give our audience a little bit of background about yourself, what you've been up to in your career to date, and how did you come up with PV Stop?
Sure. So I've been on the PV Stop journey for about 8 years now. All happened one fateful Friday afternoon over a beer with my co-founder, Luke Williams, who's one of the forefathers of the solar industry. He's been a solar PV system designer and installer for over 40 years. So really is one of the four founders of the industry. And yeah, it was literally, Luke, like all great ideas, it came through a mishap. So he was actually doing an off-grid solar installation in a national park and was probably being a little complacent. And it was windy. He was up on the ladder on the roof, and the wind blew. The wires touched his legs. Next thing, he finds himself on the ground with 2 holes in his legs. And he thought, if this can happen to someone of my experience, it can happen to anyone. And he could see on the horizon the huge growth of solar in the future, and thought, this is something we have to fix. And that's where the idea or the concept for PV Stop came from. So, yeah.
And I was going to say, so, obviously you guys are going to be exhibiting at Power and Utilities, which is great, so I can't wait to see you there. But tell me about the actual product or service that you'll be showcasing.
Sure. So the product itself is called PV Stop. And what a lot of people don't understand is when first responders or firefighters turn up to an incident, their first protocol is save savable life. If there's no risk to life, make safe. So everyone knows they isolate power at the switchboard, then they're electrically safe, and they can adopt offensive strategies, tackle a fire or an incident, and do their job properly. What most people don't realise is now when they approach an incident involving a solar PV system, as long as there is sunlight, those panels are constantly producing potentially lethal amounts of DC electricity. So in professional terms, this is known as the DC danger zone. And up until we came along, there was no practical solution to this known and growing problem. So PV Stop in itself, it's a simple solution to a complicated problem. It's a black polymer film technology, and it literally sprays onto solar panels, either via a fire extinguisher type vessel or by our new drone delivery system, which is pretty cool. And effectively, it just sprays onto the panels and blocks the light. By blocking the light, you are de-energizing the solar PV system at the source of production. So this then allows firefighters, first responders to mitigate that risk and then go back to adopting offensive tactics and saving lives and property.
And once you've actually sprayed that product onto the panels, is it easy to get off again? Does that ruin the panels, or can you salvage the panels?
Very good question. Because it's used in life risk and emergency scenarios, in its wet state, it's fire retardant. It will actually put out a Class A fire. In its dry state, it's non-flammable. It's also non-carcinogenic. environmentally friendly. And from a PV system owner's perspective, the good news is once it's been applied, it dries into almost like a latex type film. So post incident, it can simply be peeled off without causing any damage to the system.
That's absolutely fantastic. And, who would you say are your, obviously, clearly you've got a fairly broad customer range, but who would you say are the core people that, would be popping up over to your stand and looking to sort of purchase this product?
So look, our first target market is obviously firefighters because they're most at risk of being injured or worse. But as the adoption of fire services grows, the next pushback becomes, well, why is all the onus on firefighters to make these systems safe? Surely some of that responsibility sits on the PV system owners. So we're now in the largest fire departments in the world, including London Fire Brigade, New York Fire Department, CFA in Victoria. So a lot of Singapore Civil Defence. So we're in 16 countries now, and the fire departments are really getting behind our product. But now we're finding that the more forward-thinking commercial system owners are starting to want to adopt the product to have it on-site ready to be utilised by first responders. So we're some of the big customers we're talking to at the moment are Iberdrola in Spain, Petronas in Malaysia, Amazon in the US. So we've got some really big customers starting to look at our safety solutions. So I'm hoping really when we come to the show, we're really looking to catch up with government departments, industry associations, project developers, utilities, and commercial customers, really to raise awareness because a lot of them still aren't aware, and to offer solutions that are going to obviously assist with their work health and safety responsibilities and potentially improve the risk profile of their buildings and save lives and look after communities.
Absolutely, I can definitely imagine there'd be a lot of end users, and not even to the point of which the large corporates you've been speaking about. But I just know there's a whole bunch of consumers that web chat us or constantly have chats on social media. They'll be saying, "Hang on a second, can I just get one canister for my home or for my farm?" or for my facility, knowing that if they're in the middle of the sticks, it's going to be really, it's going to take some time for a first responder to get there. And as long as it's safe, of course, can they sort of have access? So is it the sort of product that anyone can buy from you just as a singular extinguisher, or is it like something that has to be done in volume?
Well, we're careful with the consumer market purely because although PV Stop is a very simple solution, understanding what a risk assessment looks like, having appropriate training, especially if someone's going to be operating at a height, they're the kind of issues we've got to be careful of with consumers. So currently we will sell to consumers, but typically in a locked box with a fireman's key, so it can be accessed by trained personnel. Saying that, we've recently developed an e-learning training program. So we now provide online, very user-friendly training so you can learn about not just PV Stop, but solar safety in general, how the technology works, how to conduct an appropriate risk assessment, etc. So potentially, if we have consumers who are interested, they can go on, do the training and become certified operators, really for their own safety and well-being, because I do have visions of someone not trained trying to climb up a ladder with an extinguisher. It could be extremely hazardous. So that's why we tend to focus on trained professionals. But as you say, there are scenarios where first response may be considerable distance away, in which case we would like to be able to empower those end users to take safety into their own hands as long as they're trained.
Mate, that's absolutely fantastic. I love the disclaimer in that, and you're absolutely bang on as well. Because, I mean, unfortunately, when there's an emergency, unless you're properly trained, you're going to react emotionally, And at that particular moment, you can put yourself at risk. So the training sounds fantastic, mate, and really, really, good on you guys as well for thinking that next level ahead and thinking, what's going to go wrong from anyone having this product available to them?
Yep.
Let's get the training ticked off.
We're very passionate about the solar industry and supporting the responsible growth of the industry, and also the safety and well-being of people likely to use our products. That's really core at what we do. We do take it very seriously, but I'm happy to say it's been a long road to where we are today. There were no standards or legislation. We're quite a unique technology, so we've had to kind of forge our own path, and we've managed to do that, but we've not cut any corners. We've been extremely responsible throughout the journey to ensure that we are doing things properly.
No, well, look, I love the sound of the product, Jim, and I certainly will be popping over on the over the 2 days to come and see you. Jim, when I first walk into Jeff's shed, where can I find you? Whereabouts are you guys going to be located?
Well, from what I understand, we're going to be on the Transformers stand. So,
fantastic.
Yeah. So I have to admit, I'm not quite sure where that is in situ with the show, but I believe it's going to be pretty well signposted. So Power Utilities Australia, come in and we'll be at the Transformers stand.
Okay, absolutely fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I do appreciate it, and I can't wait to see you at the event in just over a week's time.
Look forward to seeing you there too.
Good man. All right, thanks, Jim. All the best.
Thanks, Roshan. Appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. So I hope you're enjoying our show so far. We've had some amazing speakers. We've got more to come. But before we do, just a reminder, Power and Utilities is on next week on the 7th and 8th of May at the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre. It's truly going to be an event that you can't miss. So I definitely recommend that you attend. And if you've been inspired by some of our speakers so far, look, you know what? You have to see them up close in person, as well as the main, all the exhibitors that will be there at the event. I'm just going to play you a quick preview. If you're listening to this and not watching it, I do apologize. There is some sound to keep you amused. But if you're watching, you can get a bit of a highlight as to what's to come next week. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. So for my next guest, I'm really, really excited to introduce Carola Jonas, who is the CEO of Everty. Hello, Carola. How are you?
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm well, thank you.
Fantastic. Well, I'm so glad you've joined me today. So I'm a fan of Everty. I'm certainly a fan of the EV Council as well, which I know you're associated with as a board. I believe you're still a board member. I'm not too sure it rotates. I know. So I'm certainly excited to hear more about you. But before we get into it, Carola, can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and then how you led to creating Everty?
Yeah, sure. So I've been working in environment, sustainability, and climate tech more broadly for a couple of years before I started Everty. And actually, just before I started Everty, I worked for Enphase Energy. And I looked at this lovely marketing brochure with a rooftop solar, battery in your garage, home energy management. And I was like, where are the electric cars? Like, this makes no sense for Australia, being a leader in rooftop solar and not having EVs. And I looked into it. Back then, you could only buy Teslas and I think a BMW i3. But charging obviously was a big issue. And I was like, we have to do something in Australia. Like, looking at Europe and the US, it was... rather embarrassing, I would say.
Oh, look, it is, and if you consider how far advanced, the US, the UK, and the European markets are compared to Australia, I mean, we have definitely got some way to go, especially with EV charging infrastructure, which we'll talk about in a second. But what you're just saying as well, especially just around design aesthetics. I mean, I'm a designer by background, and when I got into renewable energy technology, solar panels, I know how amazing they are. But they didn't look particularly attractive. Back in the day, they were blue. Then they turned black. The aesthetic appeal was much greater. So when you're looking at, trying to add some, trying to zhuzh up the industry, the introduction of EVs certainly made that impact, as well as EV chargers and, and battery storage as well. So it's certainly getting a lot sexier as an industry. But really, with with Evity, I know you guys are really at the forefront of everything that's going on with EV charging infrastructure. We'll get into that in a second. But I know you are presenting at Power and Utilities next week. I'm really excited to watch you speak, and I generally don't have any intelligent questions to ask at the time, but I'm sure a lot of the audience will. But can you tell us about what you'll be presenting and what time you'll be presenting as well?
Yeah, so our panel is Australia ready for the EV revolution? And we're looking at network infrastructure to match the demand, etc. So it'll probably be a bit DNSP grid driven, but actually I think the bigger picture is, are we as a nation ready to adopt the new technology? And there are more factors than just the power grid, but I understand it's called Power and Utilities. But one key thing really is also talking about customer behavior, threats to range anxiety, etc. So it should be a very interesting discussion, and it's on Wednesday at 12:25.
Fantastic. So there you go, guys. Wednesday, 12:25. Do not miss it. Put it into your calendar and your schedule. I'll certainly be doing the same, and I'll make sure I am there, Carola. So moving on to, is Australia ready? And I don't want to give away your conversation or take away any of the tidbits you'll be sharing next week. But are we ready? How does Evity play that part inside of what's going on right now with our transition to EVs and to be able to create the infrastructure that is readily available overseas and not here?
Yeah, so in a very short sentence, we are ready if we deploy the capital that's needed to be ready. But I think just to summarize and give a bit of background, because other markets before us have gone through this, and so has Australia. In the very early days of the EV transition, everyone is focused on fast charging, put chargers along highways so we can drive from Sydney to Brisbane or Sydney to Melbourne, even though we're all flying and no one does that. But it's always like the first thing to address back in the days was range anxiety, because batteries were smaller and you needed a lot of charging infrastructure in public places. But when you take it back to how we actually use EVs, and I'm obviously an EV driver myself, the most convenient EV charging is at work, at home, wherever the car is parked. It's like topping up your mobile phone, just plugging in and walking away. And it doesn't need to be ultra fast charging. And so that's the space where Evity also plays. We work a lot with property companies, shopping centers, offices, industrial logistics, warehouses, distribution centers, but also hotels, motels, restaurants, anywhere where a car is parked and where you want to charge it because you're spending a few hours there needs EV charging. And that's not as expensive as these fast chargers along highways. So it's affordable. Like a business can install an EV charging station for probably around $5,000 and then offer that as a service to their customers. And that's what it really means, is attracting these people. If you have a shopping center with EV charging and the one next door doesn't have EV charging, I can guarantee you the EV drivers pick the one where they can charge their car.
Oh, completely. Even at Chadstone. So I live in Melbourne, and we have a massive shopping centre here at Chadstone. And I remember even like 2 or 3 years ago, I mean, there's probably only about 4 or 5 EV charging bays, and they're all Tesla, purely because Tesla are located in there. But really, when you consider the thousands of car spots inside of that shopping centre, and only 3 or 4 or 5 charging bays, it's absolutely insane. I'm also very aware of, even in my own network, certain colleagues who do drive EVs and have specifically chosen employers who actually have EV charging stations at their place of work, because they have to drive maybe 30 Ks to get to work. And then in that time, they want to top up their vehicle. So you're absolutely spot on. I mean, have you seen, more and more, organizations, hotel chains and other business chains now starting to approach you guys and saying, look, this really is a problem for us, or not so much a problem, but this is an opportunity for us? Or are you finding that you're kind of having to almost not preach to them, but really sort of impart your expertise and understanding as to, you need to jump onto this and start to install these things?
Yeah, absolutely. So historically, we've worked a lot with bigger property groups like Lend-Lease, Charter Hall, JLL. And I think one thing that I found really exciting was when we initially talked to Charter Hall, I think 3 or 4 years ago, they said, you know what, Carola, there's nothing special about EV charging. As we provide bicycle storage, we have showers as end-of-trip facility. An EV charger is just the same thing. It belongs in any building. And so they had a no-frill approach to this. For hotels and accommodation providers, I myself, when I travel long distance, I pick my hotel for EV charging. And also, luckily, the governments are doing a lot. So in WA and New South Wales, there's actually a grant program called Destination Grants, where you can get up to 75% of that charging station and the installation subsidized by the government, just to really make sure that when we travel from our metro cities into regional areas or vice versa, that there's enough charging available.
Well, I hope the Victorian government is listening, because we'd certainly like to see a few more public EV chargers available. And absolutely, and I really do see the opportunity, especially with, apartment blocks. I mean, there's a lot of high density, housing where you do require, there isn't really the infrastructure available. I know that, this does put a lot of pressure almost on the grid as well. I guess if everybody's coming home at the same time in an apartment complex and plugging their car in, there's going to be potentially some impacts or some problems from an infrastructure point of view. I live in a world where I don't pay any attention to that. I want someone else to solve it. But is that a bit of a problem as well?
Yes and no. So it is a problem if it's unmanaged, and it is a problem that Avity actually solves. So let's say your strata residential apartment building. If everyone comes home at 6 o'clock, plugs their car and starts cooking, switches on everything else, yes, of course, you're generating a peak power demand on the building. But these chargers can be inherently smart when they're used with the right software, like an Avity software, where we can either delay charging or we slow charging down to a very minimum. And as time progresses and the building consumption goes down, we can ramp up charging. You have a whole window over the whole night usually to manage that everyone gets enough electricity into their cars. And so we just need to make sure that we either charge overnight when almost nothing else is on or used in the building, or if they have solar, if you have people there with their car during the day, incentivize them to charge when solar is generating by charging them less or giving them potentially even a freebie. So there's a lot, that's why I mentioned earlier, the consumer behavior and how we react. And EV drivers want to do the right thing. They want to charge with renewable or net zero electricity anyway. So make sure you've purchased green power, you have solar, you have batteries, you can balance a lot of that energy within a building.
Well, it certainly sounds like, a combination of, your software, along with the infrastructure and the brands you work with that can provide the actual hardware for EV charging, alongside really consumers being educated and understanding how best to take both of these solutions and apply them into their own day-to-day. It really works hand in hand, and is certainly going to help us move towards net zero and 100% be powered by renewable energy. So it's very exciting, and I'm very glad that we've that you've joined me today, because it has really been an eye-opener to everyone watching today. Aside from, Ben, before I let you go, I mean, what are you most looking to achieve for being at Power and Utilities this year? It looks like an incredible setup.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. The whole EV stream that I'm participating in on the Wednesday morning, there's a lot of vehicle to grid. And if you think again of big buildings, what that means if in the future all the cars have big batteries sitting in the car parks, and they're maybe not utilized, or they will be utilized through vehicle to grid and vehicle to building, that's a very exciting trend.
Oh, mate, absolutely fantastic. Well, look, Carola, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. Just quickly, Fern, what time are you presenting again on Wednesday?
And 12:25.
12:25. All right, fantastic, guys. So 12:25 on Wednesday. Do not miss it. Carola will be there on stage with a panel, and I'm sure it's going to be a really great conversation. And certainly, you can stick your hand up and ask a question if now you've got some time to think about it. But Carola, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Roshan.
I'll see you next week. Okay, my next guest is Laura Aklandenia, who's the Business Development Manager for Raygen. How are you, Lara?
I'm well, Rosh, thank you. And you nailed my name. Thank you for that.
I didn't really practice it 15 times. So.
Good start.
No, thank you so much. So first and foremost, great name. Where are you from?
I
Or
come
where
from
do you originate
Lithuania. Yeah, I came to Australia about 14 years ago.
Wow, and what had you come to Australia? I mean, was it just purely for opportunities? Were you backpacking?
No, I wasn't. I had a 1 year job opportunity in Sydney to come straight after university. So I had my final exam, packed up things, and I had some drinks with friends, and off I went with a one-way ticket, came to Australia, and didn't plan to stay, but one thing leads to another, and now Melbourne is home.
I know it well. I came out here in 1999 on a 12-month working holiday visa and never looked back. So I get it completely. And what had you join Raygen? I mean, what was your journey today before joining Raygen? And then obviously now you've been on board.
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined Raygen exactly a year ago on the 1st of May. Happy birthday to me.
Birthday.
So yeah, thank you. I had this moment. I've spent maybe like 14, 15 years of my career in technology space, working with lots of software as a service products, leading startups and scale-ups from Australia into global markets, more on the sales and partnerships and marketing front. And then while on maternity leave with my number 2, I had the epiphany. I wanted a bit more meaning and a bit of more purpose and leave my kids with something reasonably good in this world, and decided to enter clean energy space. So I work with lots of scientists and engineers, and I'm not any of them from my background. I'm an economist as a background. But it's been a phenomenal journey because I'm a bit bigger advocate for diversity and skill transition. So it's been really good transition, and this first year has gone by really well, and Raygen has given me good opportunities to understand the market well, because I work with lots of different developers and utilities and oil and gas companies and various other major partners in the industry who are looking at decarbonization. So I get to understand how the market works, as well as various different novel technologies.
Absolutely amazing. And it's incredible you're an economist as well, so you're very much a detailed girl, great analytics, understanding the moving parts as well, which a lot of people probably don't do in the industry. Like for me personally, I'm very much from a marketing background, just aerospace and design by degree, but really I love I'm the forever opportunist, or not opportunist, that's a completely wrong thing to say. I'm more, optimist. I'm an optimist. Like I want a zero carbon future. Like yourself, I have a daughter and I want to leave much healthier, greener planet for her. And at the same token, I believe that we should be net zero today, and we should be 100% renewable in 5 to 10 years. So I think this is what I'd like to happen, but of course there's a lot that needs to happen for that transition to occur. So it is really fascinating when you have brains like yours involved in the industry to apply some logic and a structure and a plan for how that can happen. Now, before we get into Raygen, and I really want to know more about Raygen, we've never worked together before, but can you first of all tell us what your topic will be that you're presenting at Power and Utilities, because it sounds fascinating, and what time anyone who's going to be at Power and Utilities can see you speak?
So we have to wait until the very end of the conference. It's the last session on Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. I'm on a panel together with some incredible panelists discussing what's more influential in the transition. Is it the government or the finance sector? So I'm pretty sure we'll have a good debate over there.
Oh, what's the answer?
We shall see.
I know what's coming to mind straight away. So, but okay, absolutely amazing. And then tell me now a little bit more about Raygen. So, what do you guys actually do, and what are your goals for Green Australia?
Excellent. So Raygen is an Australian technology company. We have a different take on solar and energy storage. We provide utility scale, dispatchable, renewable energy storage solution. And it's growing. It's 10 years in the making, but over the last couple of years, the company has been growing significantly, not only just across Australia, but also into global markets such as the US, South America, and Middle East. Wow. We've been very fortunate because we have a proof case of our technology. We have an operational plant in Carwop, close to Mildura, right here in Victoria. That plant has a capability of dispatching for 17 hours straight, which is phenomenal. And we've also got backing from various players, local and global, including AGL, utility over here, Schlumberger or SLB, Chevron, Equinor, Photon Energy Group, and more recently, we also announced an investment from Breakthrough Victoria. So we are well supported by the industry in the transition, and the company is very much the vision is to be the technology choice for the transition, and working with various different parties to help get to the carbon neutral grid.
That's absolutely amazing. It really is, and very inspirational as well. I mean, once again, as I said earlier, being the person that I am, I would love to see how we can get to net zero immediately. But then, in terms of transition and grid stability, batteries are so important, and creating that, the size and scope of batteries required to actually help not only store the electricity being generated and created, but then also have that be dispersed at the right times is absolutely insane. Who are you going to be wheeling and dealing with at Power and Utilities? Are you aside from speaking on the final day, on the final session, which everyone's going to have to hang around for now? What are your other goals at Power and Utilities?
Well, it's the conference is attracting lots of different players, lots of different leaders from the industry. So I hope to bump into quite a few and have some conversations with them. There are quite a few interesting tracks to me personally, and including the track where I'm a part of, talking about the regulation and financing. Also understanding more about the grid transition and different applications. And on a personal note, I'm also interested to see where vehicle to grid technologies are, and when we will have that right here in Australia. So I'm pretty sure there'll be lots of networking, but also lots of learning happening throughout the 2 days.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, Lara, I can't wait to see you next week and hear you chat. I'll promise to have a Red Bull before you talk, so I'm at least alert.
I'll get a joke ready for you.
Yeah, please do. And not, it's going to be a massive 2 days. And for anyone, who is umming and ahhing as to whether or not to come to Power and Utilities, look, you've heard from some amazing guests on this podcast so far. There's a couple more to come, but Lara's a very good example of why you should attend, and really hearing about how Raygen's impacting our industry. It sounds like they're up to some great stuff. Lara, thank you so much for your time today. I can't wait to see you next week.
Thank you, Rosh. See you then.
Thank you. What an amazing series of conversations we've had over the last couple of days. I have to say the last couple of days, because we've had 2 or 3 costume changes in between, but it's been amazing and very, very inspiring. Power and Utilities happening next week on the 7th and 8th of May. Looks to be an absolutely incredible event with some amazing exhibitors and some amazing speakers. We're going to finish off with, saving the best to last, with someone I'm really excited to talk to, which is Lisa Chiba, the Managing Director for Momentum Energy. Hello, Lisa. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You are very welcome, and thank you for joining me. I know you must be incredibly busy in your role at Momentum Energy. I want to hear all about Momentum in this conversation, but before we do, I want to find out a bit more about yourself. You and I haven't met before, so Can you tell me a little bit more about you and how you found your way to Momentum Energy?
Yeah, of course. So I've been the Managing Director here at Momentum for the last 2 years. I joined in January 2022. Before that, had about probably 15 years experience in the industry across Australia and the UK, which we were connecting on before this call, I know. I've also worked in retail banking quite a lot as well, so financial services, utilities, over sort of 15 to 20 years. A strong background for me is around customer, so customer experience, digital transformation, those sorts of things I'm really passionate about. I guess on a personal note, I've just returned from maternity leave with my second child.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So just freshly back 3-4 weeks ago, and doing the new parent plus toddler plus work juggle, which has been interesting. But I guess in line with that, one of my real passions is around supporting a diverse workforce in the energy sector. I think with the energy transition, it's so important that we can leverage all talents and access all elements of the workforce. But obviously the energy transition also one of my passions.
Absolutely fantastic. And I can imagine being newly back at work after baby number 2 must be a challenge. So I'm sure you're handling it incredibly well. How has the second one been? Has it been easier than the first, or?
I wouldn't say easier, but she's beautiful. I've got 2 girls, and they're gorgeous. It's all worth it. But yeah, there's definitely, I'd love some catch-up sleep.
I hear you.
But it is great being back. I'm actually really enjoying it. So it's all good.
No, well, my daughter's now 13, so she's reached that age where she's 13 going on 21, and we're seeing less and less of her every day. But she's a great kid, makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, awesome.
No, good stuff. Well, look, before we find out more about Momentum, so I know you're probably one of the retailers that I'm most fascinated with, just based upon your strong ties with renewable energy at your core, which is amazing. Can you tell us a little bit more about what topic you'll be presenting at Power and Utilities and what time of day that'll be on?
Yeah, sure. So I'll be there on Tuesday in the Putting the Customer First stream, and I'll be presenting the keynote at midday, so at 12 p.m. The topic is making the energy transition tangible for large and small consumers, the retailer challenge. But it's a topic that I've spoken about at a couple of other conferences, very similar topics, very close to my heart. It's something that we talk about a lot here at Momentum. So I'm really excited about sharing a few more of the kind of ideas and products, solutions, services, approaches, things that we're trying to implement here at Momentum to really help all of our consumers, whether they're business customers or residential consumer customers, to actively participate or at least, not get left behind, depending on what their interest and appetite is. How do we make sure everybody is able to come along on that journey through the energy transition? So it should be a good session.
I'm looking forward to it. You've convinced me. I'll be there. Don't hold me accountable if I'm not. If I'm interviewing,
I'll be looking.
Where's Rosh? Where is he? There he is. All right, I'll be wide awake and room to go. I can't wait to hear it. So Lisa, tell me more about Momentum Energy. I mean, you guys have got a very strong foundation when it comes to renewable energy. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and about Momentum's energy role inside of Green Australia?
Yeah, of course. So Momentum Energy, we're a mainland retailer, but I think the strong ties that you refer to, we're a subsidiary of Hydro Tasmania. So Hydro Tasmania is the largest generator of renewable energy in the country. And not only that, with the hydropower scheme that was set up down in Tasmania, that was more than 100 years ago that got started. So we've been delivering, significant amounts of generation from our hydro powered stations for decades, and have some really exciting plans moving forward, which is sort of badged as Battery of the Nation, a couple of really big construction projects to further increase our capacity in that space. So that's really cool. We love being part of the Hydro Tasmania family and sharing more information about them. And then from a Momentum perspective, we're based in Melbourne. We have some wonderful staff based in Hobart as well, but we retail out to the mainland NEM states, so predominantly Victoria, but New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, and for our larger C&I customers in the ACT as well. I think, we're working really hard, like all energy companies are, to support customers, directly to the topic that I'm speaking to on Tuesday about how to help all customers, participate in that transition, or at least understand it, or at least not get left behind, again, depending on, people's appetite, interest, etc. So that's a real core pillar for our organisation. And of course, we still want to offer simple, straightforward, affordable energy. We see ourselves definitely as a challenger brand. So we're what you probably label a mid-tier or a medium-sized retailer. But certainly with my team, we're very focused on making sure that what we offer is always brand aligned, that it is delivering against our core strategy and our core sort of values, and that it is that we're offering products and services that our customers actually want and need. I think really seeing ourselves as that kind of challenger brand. In terms of, to your question around, I think you said a Green Australia. Hopefully, some of that helps to bring to life what we do. The other thing that I've been really proud of us really focusing on over the last year or two is finding really brand-aligned organisations that we can partner with, because we actually recognise that energy companies aren't always the most trusted, and you don't always want to spend time looking up your retailer and, scrolling through their website and finding all the information. It's just not what all Australians are, spending their time on. But we think that there is a lot of information that is really important for people to have access to. For example, the design files are this amazing design blog, online publication led by Lucy Fegans. We really proudly partner with the design files and have sponsored a lot of their climate content. we've worked extensively with Nightingale Housing, who are an incredible sustainable housing developer, and really, help to amplify their voice in some of the work that they're doing. We've just partnered with a company in Melbourne called Goodbye Gas, who are an electrification organisation, I suppose you could say. And they literally just came into my house this week and took out an old gas heater and replaced it with split system for me. So on my electrification journey, there is more to be done, but chipping away at it. And so together with Goodbye Gas, we're really excited with that. So we've got lots of partnerships like that, which, I'm really proud of, because it just means that, it's not just momentum. Actually, we're trying to create this community and to amplify the voices of those that we think are doing a really incredible job already.
That's absolutely fantastic. And you're right. It's all about small steps as well. I mean, we talk about Road to Zero, about everyone achieving net zero now, which is, as an internal optimist, I believe, like to see everything happen immediately, which obviously I know there's a transition process. I'm just impatient. But at the same token, like you've just transitioned from your gas cooker to electric, from gas to electric for your split system, I mean, these are the small steps people can take. And I think what I like most about Momentum, and I've known about your organisation for many, many years. I think I've sat in a Melbourne office once, just having a chat in the more CNI space. When I was back in my retail electricity days. Just really sort of that more Richard Branson attitude, where the consumer comes first, and what can we do to help the consumer, get to fulfil their goals, and how can we facilitate that, which is absolutely fantastic. So, I'm really, really excited to hear you chat more next week at Power Utilities. What else are you looking forward to, aside from being on stage and wowing the audience with all these amazing initiatives and strategies? What else are you looking forward to about Power Utilities?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's always great to go to these industry events, and it's a strong conference. There's some really good speakers, and I think it will be a really good one in terms of content. But I always just find just getting away from the day-to-day job, getting out there with like-minded professionals from the industry, hearing some new ideas, just kind of sparking a few conversations I always come back quite refreshed with lots of ideas and things to talk about. But equally, what I've found the last couple of years is that pretty much every conference I've gone to, I come away with at least one or two new contacts that I then put in contact with someone, or it leads to a partnership, or, we solve a problem for one of their customers, or we just have a chat and, connect over industry problems that we can talk about into the future. So I love making those connections as well. So I'm just looking forward to something a bit different, to spark some ideas and get to know a few more in the industry.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, I'm sure now you've said that, you're going to have a whole queue of people saying, Lisa, chat to me. But look, and you're right, it's all about collaboration. I mean, the only way we achieve, net zero or 100% renewable energy within our lifetime is if people work together. And there's some incredibly talented individuals and organisations in this industry, and we're all, do reasonably well on our own. But collaborating, working together, we can achieve those goals a lot quicker. And of course, there's successes along the way by doing so. So I hope we'll be working more together. Energy Matters is a fan, and we've supported the retail electricity industry our entire existence, but purely out of a focus towards achieving 100% renewable. So I do know it's a process, and I'm not very patient at the same time.
We need impatient people, though. I mean, it's great, right?
Completely. Charge and drive, and ask someone else to work out how we do it along the way. That's my strategy. But look, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. I do appreciate it. You closing off our podcast series, if you like, for Power Utilities. So it's been great to finish on a high, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.